hotel owners are, or the restaurant owners are trying to create. So we come back to them and say, okay, you don't need to worry about anything. You don't need to invest in your capex. You don't need to invest in your opex. We will take care of all of that. And we will be able to give you or show there what you think fits with your audience profile. So that's how we convince the restaurants. I mean, there could be more to it, but similarly for corporate offices, see, internal communication for a corporate office is a big challenge. Today, if in large organizations you send an email to the employees, without seeing it, they'll put it into the trash bin. Right? If you put up posters, they become like dead spots. So organizations are constantly looking on how to communicate with their employees. So what we do is we allow them to use our platform as a medium for internal communication. So if they want to show their CEO talking to the audience, the employees, we put it as part of our channel and show it. If they want to show a party that was held or the best employee of the month or anything, then we kind of bring it into our medium and show it. And it works both ways. Employees go to see their own pictures or their own events, and they also see our medium. And many of them like our content, so they watch it, and while they're watching us, they also get the company's information. So like this, for different segments, we have different value propositions.
Yeah, I have a question about typically McDonald's. If you see, the crowd visiting there would be of different profile depending on what time it is or which day it is. So how do you manage the dynamic content?
So we don't manage dynamic content. That's a limitation of this thing, that we run the network in a loop. So it's a 1 hour loop which keeps repeating itself. So absolutely, when this gentleman's question that in future when we go real time, we'll be able to manage that. But today, we presume that people of different profiles are coming through this thing. So there is a little bit of an inefficiency in the medium, I agree. Yeah.
Another question about about your habit of reading. Which are the 3 books you would recommend all of us to read? Top 3 books. Which has influenced your professional life or as a person?
That's interesting. So, I recently read the autobiography of a yogi. I would recommend all of you to read it. It calms you down a little bit, and I think it shows you the other side of a little bit of spirituality and things like that. I personally like economics, right? And I like to read about it for no apparent reason. So I recently read a book, it's called Memos to the President. Right? So if anybody is interested in how this whole jungle of RBI and the banking system and our economy works, especially in these times, which are troubling times, read that. It's very concisely and nicely explains you, that. And I enjoyed Steve Jobs' biography. So I don't know if it fits into
Walter Isaacson. Written by Walter Isaacson.
That's right. Isaacson. Walter Isaacson. Yes.
I have a hand on the left at the back.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is how long you bootstrap before you get the VC funding? That's the first question. And second is did your corporate profile, very successful corporate profile and connections help you get the first few customers or business?
So the answer to your first question is around 9 months we bootstrapped. So I started in July 2006 and March 2007 we got our funding. The answer to your second question is, so I have to be careful in answering that. First is the generic advice that sometimes the card that you carry in your corporate listing gives you a false image of yourself, right? And of your worth and of your connections. Never bank on those. So the moment you leave your corporate listing, become an entrepreneur, people who you think will help you and will the big talkers will turn out to be mice and run away. But there are some really good people who will stand by you and uh, make things happen for you. And I was very lucky that there were quite a few of them who, when we went back to, they definitely helped us. So we do owe our startup success to them. But largely, don't get into a venture thinking that the people you know will help you. I've heard a lot of stories which say that that was the wrong thing to do.
So basically, in a summary, would you say that your initial customers were your own customers and not kind of a network?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In our case, see, I was into hardcore telecom technology and ventured into media, which has no relationship. So none of the telecom customers kind of became our media customers, because the people I was dealing with on telecom were very different from those who would, So it was a complete restart, a complete reset. Absolutely, none of those people, and I could not expect, because those are the people who don't spend on media. Those are, at a very different level. And yeah.
We have a hand at the back there.
Yeah. So you talked about men versus boys, and actually, if I may say that you left at the peak of, I think one of the peaks of your career. Do you think that if you had left like 10 years back, what would have been the story? I mean, just new entrepreneurs which are like just having 4 or 5 years of experience, and versus the guys who have like 20 years.
So honestly, I don't have an answer to that, but let me share with you a few things. If God could turn the clock around, then I would think I should have done a venture much early in life, right? So there's always a balance, right? If I had done earlier in life, maybe I would have been more successful, but it would have been more risky for me, because I would have had no fallback or no savings, it purely depends on what stage in life you are at. Some people are more gutsy or can afford or have the opportunities to start early, and I think they should start early. Some people who don't have at some stage in life, they become ready to take that plunge, then it's the right time. But as they say, there's always, whenever you are ready, it's the right time. So,
yeah, Rajan, so my question again is related to some of the funding discussion we had earlier. So I would assume in a business like yours, this is capital intensive, because you need to put out a lot of screens, and to grow you need capital. And if you look at the VCs, the inclination would be to fund a business which is not very capital intensive, or you take the example of technology based companies where sort of build once, sell multiple times. That's kind of the theory behind that. And if you look at your business, you bring in capital, you can spend it on a number of resources, you have a set of inventory. After you reach a certain scale, you sell that inventory. Now to grow, you need another set of capital to get more resources. So how did you what was the how do you convince, or what value proposition did you have for the investors in setting?
I think that's a very good question, and very insightful actually, because sometimes even as an entrepreneur, when I was baking my business model, I didn't realize that, but in our case, what happened was it turned out to be a capital efficient business, right? Because what we did was, it was electronic equipment, and the de-escalation in pricing was very high. And we were able, because I came from an electronic industry background, and in discussions with the vendors and all, we had a predictive line of decline for the pricing of the electronic equipment. We assumed. And when we fitted that against our business model, right, it actually became that the screens would be